I can get roll call, please.
Councilmember Aguilar,
Present.
Councilmember Siqueiros,
Present.
Mayor Soria.
Present.
For the record, Councilmember McCabe and Mayor Pro Tem Samra are not in attendance, but their absence is excused.
Do we have any changes to the agenda, council? None?
Yeah, I'd like to make a change. I'd like to move item number 9, city council approval to purchase a memorial plaque or stone in honor of late John Vance to either prior to the awards presentations or after.
Okay, let's go ahead and move it before the awards. So we'll go ahead and start with item 9. City council approval to purchase a memorial plaque or stone in honor of the late John Vance.
Evening, Mayor, Council. I want to thank you for considering this item. I'd also like to acknowledge as well that John's daughter and grandsons and some other family members are present here as well. You all received in your packet the information on this, and in that information was a bit of a bio on John, and I'm sure you've all read that. And for those of you who knew John, you would certainly agree with what's written here. John not only was a longtime member of the fire department and lived in Livingston for a great many years. He was also a dedicated member of the community and a real supporter of Livingston and many of the projects and activities that take place here. Excuse me. He dedicated 48 years total to the fire service, 40 of those active as an active firefighter. The remaining 8 were as honorary member, where he continued to serve, attend meetings, as well as participate in a number of functions that the fire department is involved in each year. So his service did not stop when he retired from active duty. He continued on right up to just weeks before his passing. So we would certainly support council's decision in offering a memorial for John, and I believe also in that there's one of the examples that's presented, and then there's another one as well. And like I said, we would certainly appreciate the council's consideration to this, and I'm sure that his family would as well, to give a lasting memorial and tribute to someone who served the community and the fire department for so long and so honorably. And I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. I'm going to open up to public for any comment if they'd like to come up. All right, bring it back to council. Yep.
I know, Chief Carter.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. I know there's 2 options here: Plaque and Memorial Maltese Cross. Any preference?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. What makes this unique, this request a little different than anything else is, so one of my first duties that I was assigned when I first got to the Livingston was to set up the memorial service for the fire department for Mr. Vance. So I was kind of tasked with that responsibility to ensure that, you know, we had fire personnel as far as apparatus there during the ceremony to honor Mr. Vance. One of the things that struck me about Mr. Vance was, so this request is not solely because of his involvement with the department, but as I started to talk to a lot of the community members here in Livingston, and they all expressed how much Mr. Vance meant to them, and that was completely outside the fire department. So that, to me, kind of explained that Mr. Vance was a special individual. And so to honor him, you know, I felt that it would be something that if we could, as a not just a fire department, but as a city, honor Mr. Vance, that would be something that would be looked upon. So there are two different plaques that we're looking at. One's an etched plaque that would be fixated on the building. Anywhere runs between $1,500 to $2,000. And then there's a multi-cross that will probably run anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000. What the fire department will do is we'll work with Public Works to identify a location that would be suitable for the city, and then maintain as far as upkeep, and just try to identify where we like the city, or where the city would like the plaque to be fixated. We kind of narrowed it down between the two. Like I said, it's just going to be basically up for, you know, the cities to determine the council to determine which way you'd like to go.
Have you thought of any spots yet, or considered anything in that way? Because it depends on the spot as well, right?
Correct. So there is a location in between the fire department and the police department. There's some lawn area that we have right off of B Street that would probably be ideal. Just depend upon, C Street. Just depend upon you know, what we went with, what style we went with. If we did something that was like a multi-cross, that would kind of be where we want it to be. And then that would put us, we would make sure that, you know, like an eternity light or something like that would constantly shine on it. So something that's really presentable. Or if we did something that was of the plaque, then it would be affixated to the building itself.
So if we decided to go between the PD station and the fire station, the memorial stone would be
A multi-cross would
the
probably be
multi-cross,
ideal.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just to go back a little bit, I had the opportunity to meet late Mr. Vance. Just like you guys mentioned, you know, he was a dedicated individual. He loved Livingston. I know he loved the fire department, so I think this is very appropriate. We recognize him in this manner. So I'm fully supportive of that. You know, I'm big on recognition and community involvement. So I just want to say that. So it would go, if you chose the Maltese cross, it would go somewhere between the fire department and the police station. Okay.
Correct.
I am good with either. I think both are nice to represent the years of service Mr. Vance gave. I mean, how do you pay back 40 years of saving lives and the time away from, you know, family, having to, you know, put yourself at risk and danger? So, to me, I'm public safety, so I'm not, you know, work side by side firefighters, so whatever, you know, you guys choose, I would support, so I'm on board with either.
Yeah, same here.
Same here. I like that, the memorial stone, the
multi-cross?
the multi-cross.
Okay.
I know about.
Okay. Appreciate it.
I
Thank you.
appreciate both of you bringing this up to council.
Thank you.
Good evening to the Vance family. On behalf of the city, we thank you for, letting your dad come out and grandfather and father come out and serve. So Kim and I went to high school together. So Mr. Vance was kind of a fixture at the fire department. Anywhere you went, you would see, Mr. Vance. And your mom too, she was, I remember she had a Mustang, Heffa, #1. So she was part of the fire department too. So thank you to your family for the wonderful service that they gave to the city of Livingston. All right, well, it looks like we're going with the stone now. We just need to pick size and color. So I can have a motion. Or we can leave it to the fire department discretion.
On the size, I can make, you want to make the motion?
Yeah, if you want.
I make the motion, the city council approve the purchase of a memorial plaque or a stone in honor of late John Vance, leaving it up to the fire department on the size, depending on how it is. Good.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Sicaros. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Second from Councilmember Aguilar. Can I get roll call?
Councilmember Aguilar,
Yes.
Councilmember Siqueiros,
Yes.
Mayor Soria.
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 3-0.
I thank you, Chief. Thank you, Fire Department.
Thank you.
And thank you again to the Vance family. Next, we'll go ahead and go to awards, presentations, and proclamations. We have a presentation from CalPERS staff presenting on California Employers Retiree Benefit Trust Fund, CERBT, that is used to fund other post-employment benefits.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I haven't had the opportunity to wish you Happy New Year, so belatedly, Happy New Year. What we want to talk about tonight is other post-employment benefits. I know this subject has been brought up in the past, and we're bringing it up again tonight and bringing you a recommendation on what we ought to do. So, first of all, I think we just need to remind ourselves what is OPEB. Those are sort of the initials or the acronym that we hear, other post-employment benefits. And what they are benefits other than a pension that an employee receives as part of their retirement package. And for the city of Livingston, OPEB, or benefits other than pension, are comprised of health and dental coverage, depending on the bargaining group that the individual belonged to and the date of hire. So with the employees in Livingston, let's just look for a minute at sort of who is eligible to get these OPEB benefits. And if we sort of look over on the left-hand side, we sort of break the employees into two categories. Those that were hired before July 1 of 1989, and those that were hired after July 1, 1989. And really the difference is the groups that are covered are a little different, as you can see, and the length of coverage is a little different in that those that were hired before July 1, 1989, basically received coverage for lifetime. Those that were hired after July 1, 1989, they have coverage until age 65 or when Medicare then comes into play. The other difference is the benefits are for those that were hired before 7/1/1989, provides dependent coverage. And it provides health and dental care. So it's really sort of as if they were still employees for the city, is what they're getting their benefit on. But what happened then after 7/1/1989, the MOUs were negotiated in such a way that dependent coverage went away, the dental coverage went away, and then the amount paid by the city was capped at up to $300 per month. So as people continue to work that were hired after July 1, 1989, there's sort of this continuing liability that continues to build just like pensions. So if we sort of look at the dollars that we would need to talk about, the city has engaged an actuary to do an actuarial that sort of determines, okay, let's look at the employees that we have now. Let's look at the people that have retired. We estimate how long they're going to live. We estimate how much the health insurance premiums are going to be. And the total number, if we sort of wrote a check tomorrow to sort of cash out what those estimated benefits are, is about $3.4 million. The way that works is every year for every employee, for every day that they work, they're accruing a little more benefit that's going to go to them after they retire in the form of premiums. And that's what that $39,000 number is there. That's sort of the normal cost for employees that are currently working. Now, if we look at sort of the $3.4 million and say, okay, let's amortize it over 30 years like a mortgage, and say let's sort of pay it over time for all those past accumulations, that's about $163,000. So the total annual cost right now is just a little over $200,000. Now, what the city has done, and what a lot of cities do, is they just pay the premiums when they come due. They don't really set money aside for the additional that it's going to cost. And so the premiums that were paid last year were about $112,000, so we've got a difference of about $90,000. So that $90,000 is really what we ought to be sort of putting in the bank to sort of anticipate when these people retire and the premiums are due, they can be covered. So what has staff been doing to address this? When Odie Ortiz was here and had not left on his leave of absence, he had put money in the budget, 16-17, to start funding this. And he also, during that year that he was here, he had presentations made by two vendors that provide these trusts that you put money into and bank the money, so when the premiums become due, you can pay for it. So since he stepped away and I've been asked to sort of pick the project up and sort of bring you a recommendation, so tonight I've asked CalPERS, who is another vendor, to make a presentation. So then we will have had 3 presentations. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. And then later on in the agenda, there's actually a recommendation that we bring on CalPERS as our trust to start banking this difference so we can have money set aside to make sure these premiums are covered when they come due. So I would like to ask Karen Lookingbill, who is from CalPERS and who is from the trust part of CalPERS, not the pension side, but the OPEB Health Trust, to make a presentation. We have some handouts here, some little books that I'm going to hand out here. So did you have any questions on the part that I talked about, first of all? Okay.
Thank you, Brad. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. And also belated Happy New Year to everyone. So good evening to everyone. First, I'd like to thank you for allowing the CERB, the California Employers Retiree Benefit Trust Program, to be given the opportunity to share information about the program. So what I'd like to do is just continue the OPEB discussion that Brad has started. I want to focus on just two things tonight. So first is, what are the other employers doing with regard to their retiree health care or their OPEB liabilities? How are they managing their growing unfunded liabilities? And then second is, why is CalPERS, or is the CERBT, the trust provider of choice for majority of these California employers? Okay. As Brad has mentioned earlier, historically, a lot of employers who offer OPEB, they fund or pay for these benefits on a pay-as-you-go basis. So when we say pay-as-you-go, it means that an employer will receive the bills every month when they come due, and then from the current year operating budget dollars of the employer, that's when they start paying for these benefits. And this process is repeated in perpetuity. So what that also means is that no financial commitment is or strategy has been made on the employer's side to save for future retiree benefit payments. Now, typically, most of the budget would sit in county treasury, LAIF, or money market or money market account. And these investment options, if you look at its investment rate of return, maybe from the last 10 to 20 years or 30 years, would range between 3 and 5%. So these are low-yielding investment options. So what that also means for any employer is that majority of these OPEB payments, or the cost, will come from the current year operating budget dollars or the future year's operating budget dollars instead of from investment earnings or investment gains. Now, you might want to ask, so what are other agencies doing? So there are employers who have decided that there must be an alternative to just continue to do pay-as-you-go. And one option is prefunding. So what I want to share here with you is that there are a lot of benefits for any employer who offers OPEB once they decide to participate in a qualified OPEB trust. So one would be is that there's a greater likelihood for employers to save more money in the future as opposed to continue to do pay-as-you-go. So why is that? When an employer decides eventually to participate in a trust, they usually would put their money or their funds in a higher yielding investment options. And as opposed to if you just put it in county treasury, LAIF, or money market. Now, the long-term goal of a prefunding is that these contributions that you make, and usually this is a long-term strategy or long-term commitment, they will eventually yield much higher returns or significant investment earnings so that in the future, a portion of the benefit payments that you pay would come from the investment income, and then the portion coming from either the current year operating budget dollars or from the principal would get smaller and smaller. Now, these outcomes do not happen overnight. Currently, the CalPERS OPEB Trust has more than 500 employers in the trust, and they know that this is a long-term strategy or long-term commitment with us. Another benefit is if in the scenario in the future that, that the significant investment earnings are generated by the trust, then it means that a big chunk or big portion of the OPEB payments will come from the investment earnings, then there is less dependency or less reliance on the operating budget dollars. It means it frees up your future budget dollars to do other priorities for the city. Now, one impact of pre-funding is that it also demonstrates prudent financial management for the city. When you pre-fund through an OPEB trust, there is a greater likelihood that you have optimized financial reporting. So what we have observed is that employers who decide to make contributions to a qualified OPEB trust, it doesn't have to be, CalPERS, they have improved financial statements as compared to when they were not pre-funding. One reason for this is that an OPEB trust is an irrevocable trust. So it is set it is established so that it is only specific to your retiree health care or for OPEB. And any fund or asset into that trust will offset dollar per dollar the liabilities that you report in your financial statement. So if, for example, if the city decides to put money into the trust in your next financial reporting period, then you will be able to recognize those funds or those money as an asset for the city. Now, third impact of pre-funding, and this could be also seen immediately, is that once you start pre-funding through a trust, then you with your OPEB actuary will be able to use a much higher discount rate assumption. So Brad has earlier mentioned that you worked with an OPEB actuary, I believe it is Bickmore Services, and they were able to calculate the city's unfunded or OPEB liability at around the $3.4 million range. Now, should the city decide to start pre-funding, then you may use a different discount rate, and usually it is aligned or in sync with the long-term rate of return of the investment option or investment vehicle that you want to put your money in. And usually the higher the discount rate being used, the lower the OPEB liability for an employer. So your OPEB actuary will be able to recalculate the city's new OPEB liability. Now, if you feel that pre-funding is an option for the city, now let's move on to the next topic is why is CalPERS or the CERBT program the preferred OPEB trust provider of choice? We have been a trust since 2007, 2008, so more than 10 years, and I believe these are the reasons why we are a successful program. I've mentioned earlier we have more than 500 employers in our trust. In fact, in California, we are the largest OPEB trust provider in terms of the number of agencies in the trust. So our nearest competition has 1/3 of our employer count, and we are also the largest in terms of the total assets being managed by the trust. So we provide excellent customer service. So we are a very lean team in our unit, only 11 plus 2 other clerks or student assistants with us. And we want to make sure that if there is anything that is needed by our existing employers or our prospective customers or agencies, we are able to respond to them. Also, in the kit, you can see that I provided my business card. So for all of the people in the CERBT, we make sure we also issue our direct lines, our email addresses, even our mobile phone numbers, because we don't want you calling a 1-800 number when it comes to OPEB. We want you to call us directly, and we will be able to respond to you quickly. So I am available to you 24/7, 365 days of the year on anything OPEB related. In addition, we also provide you an account annual update. So we do it face-to-face or a telephone conference or a customized email so that we can update you on your funding progress as well as share information if there are any changes to the governmental accounting standards. We also know that you wear many hats, and we focus only on OPEB. So we want to make sure that should you decide to join and participate in our trust, our processes are very simple and easy. So it should be an efficient process. Our administrative procedures, we try to streamline it as possible, as much as possible. So it's very easy to make a contribution or even request a disbursement from the trust. Also, we are a government entity like the city, so we are also a not-for-profit. We are 100% compliant with regard to the governmental accounting standards. And we also make sure that we are fully committed in making sure that all of the employers in the trust we support in terms of their compliance with the governmental accounting standards as well. One advantage we feel over others is that we manage the investment policy on behalf of all of the 532 agencies in the trust. So what this means is that it will save you time and money because you don't have to start an investment committee and identify where you need to buy and sell and monitor your assets on a daily basis, because we do that for you. And I think last but not the least is that by far out of all of the OPEB trust providers out there, that we offer the lowest cost in terms of participation fees. So the CERBT program charges all of our employers, regardless of the contribution, a flat 10 basis points of assets under management. So it's 1/100th of a single percent. So for example, an employer allows us to manage $1 million of assets, and for 365 days, it did not gain or lose, or it did not change at all. After 365 days, it's still $1 million. We would have charged that employer only $1,000 for the entire year. You know, we are a not-for-profit. We only charge or collect based on what we need to keep the lights on, so to speak, and we are a lean team. Also, the 10 basis points of asset under management is, excuse me, is an all-inclusive fee. So that already includes the investment management fees, the administrative fees, as well as the custodial fees. There are no additional fees on top of that. There is no joining fee, there is no contribution fee, there is also no termination fee in the event that you decide you want to part ways with the CERBT program. Now, in the occasions wherein we would see our competitor, you know, in bids or in other presentations, since all of them are a for-profit organization, we have noticed that they usually charge 5 to 6 times more than what the CERBT program charges our employers. Now, I want to share more information about the trust, but before I do that, there are also other advantages. I will not go through each and every bullet points. Maybe I want to highlight here is that, again, there are no termination restrictions. And if you want for us to create sub-accounts, if you want to account for a particular bargaining unit, then we are able to do so for you. Brad has mentioned that I work only for the OPEB Trust. So CalPERS is a huge organization, and we have a lot of different products. So the pension fund is the largest one, but I work for the OPEB program, and this is where we differentiate from a lot of the products in CalPERS. Now, with the OPEB Trust program, you have full control of the funding policy. So, in what way? So, the employer decides if they want to contribute or not, when they want to contribute, and how much. So, you are not influenced or obligated or mandated by the OPEB Trust program to make the contribution. So, the decision lies solely on the employer's side. So again, contributions are never required. It is not mandatory. It is purely voluntary. You also, or the employer also decides when they want to seek reimbursement. So employers do not just put money in the trust. Of course, the end goal in mind is that you have enough assets so that you can start drawing money out of the trust and start paying for the retiree health care premiums. So again, you decide when you want to seek reimbursement. Also, you also decide on the asset allocation strategy. So the program offers you 3 different investment vehicles or investment options. We have like a high growth option, and then we also have more conservative options for all of the employers. And lastly, you also get to determine and work with your preferred OPEB actuary. So with the pension fund in CalPERS, we assign an internal actuary for you, but with OPEB, then you have the option to work with your preferred OPEB actuary. Also, you may work with the actuary to identify the discount rate assumption that you will use to calculate for your OPEB liability. So this is not something, again, that the OPEB team will identify. It will tell you what to use. I've mentioned in the previous slide that we have 3 investment options. So these are our 3 asset allocation strategies, strategies 1, 2, and 3. And each strategy has its own long-term rate of expected return, and it also has its corresponding investment risk and volatility profile. So you can see that strategy 1 is more of the high growth or more aggressive strategy, but then there are also an option for those who are either in the preservation mode or they are more conservative. And they may look at the different strategies 2 and 3. They have a lower expected rate of return, but the risk also is much lower compared to strategy 1. Now, any employer may decide to move from one strategy to another, and they can do that at any point in time and at no cost to the employer, because again, we only charge the 10 basis points of assets under management. Now, these are the 5 public market asset classes where we invest in. So, risk is very important to the CERB, and we diversify our investment portfolio, and you can see here the 5 areas where we invest in. So whether you are in strategy 1 or you're in strategy 2 or 3, we still invest in these areas. It's just that the level of participation change. So you can see that 2 of the main drivers would be, for example, global equity and fixed income. So for strategy 1, which is the more aggressive strategy, there is a higher allocation for global equity compared to fixed income. But if you lean more towards a more conservative approach, then you can see for strategy 3, there is less allocation to global equity at 24%, but then more on fixed income and even on the treasury inflation protected securities or TIPS. In the second column, I'd like to highlight that these are the industry standard benchmarks that we measure our performance with. So in the next couple of slides, I want to show you how the strategies perform versus its benchmarks. Now, a lot of employers, whether they are already part of the program or they're just looking at participating in the CERB, they would always ask, so tell me the entire picture, where is everybody in the program? Who's in what strategy? So I hope that this slide will show us the number of agencies in what strategy. So the light blue bars tell us how many agencies are in what strategy. So for example, strategy 1, there's 366 agencies there. So majority of the employers in the program are there. There's 102 in strategy 2, and then there's 56 in strategy 3. Now, what about the dark blue bars? The dark blue bars tell us how well funded that strategy is. So we just aggregated all of the assets and divided them by the aggregate liabilities, and this is the funding level for each of the strategies. You know, somehow it supports the notion or the mindset that as agencies get better and better funded, they tend to be more conservative, they tend to move their assets to a lower risk profile. Now, this slide, I want to share with you that these are all the employers in the program, but we have divided them or categorized them by agency type. So it tells you what is the aggregate liabilities and the aggregate assets of all of these agency types and what is the funding level in the program. So if you want to look at cities and towns, we currently have 139 cities and towns in the program, and it's almost $6 billion of liabilities, assets of $1.4 billion. So the cities and towns in the CERB are 24% funded. And you can also see the other agency types. You know, you can see that somehow like water agencies, special districts, or sanitation districts, they tend to have a healthier funding level compared to some other types. The state of California, of course, is the biggest in terms of liability, and it also is not yet well-funded. So we have just started contributing for the state of California. Now, I've promised earlier that I want to show you the investment results of the 3 strategies of the program and how it is faring compared to the industry standard benchmarks. So we are presenting to you the rate of investment return in 7 different time periods, as short as 1 month, and as far back as, if you look at the rightmost column, which is ITD inception to date, so that you can compare, you know, our performance versus benchmarks. And out of all of the 21 data points, the CERB program has outperformed its benchmarks. So to summarize regarding what can CERBT deliver or offer you, especially in terms of GASB compliance and reporting. I've mentioned earlier that we take care of the investment policy. So you provide the, we have the fiduciary investment board. So because of the 3 asset allocation strategies that we offer you, then you get to decide which investment that you want to participate in. Also, we offer you an online record-keeping system wherein if you want to monitor the performance of your assets on a daily basis, you may be able to do so. In terms of the governmental accounting standards compliance, there is a new standard that is to be implemented this fiscal year, and we are going to provide you with the audited GASB 74 statement for you to be able to complete your CAFR, or your financial reporting. We are also a huge advocate of GASB, or the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So every time we have an annual update with a customer or with a workshop, we make sure that we also highlight the changes in the accounting standards. I've mentioned also earlier that we charge 10 basis points of assets under management, and this is just a breakdown of where the 10 basis points go. So you can see that a portion would go to the external investment management fees, a small portion goes to the internal management team, about 55% would go to the other units in CalPERS, like our unit and the others supporting us as well. And the total is 10 basis points of assets under management. Now, if you want to see a history of our fees since its inception, so we started with 2 basis points in 2008. We went as high as 15 basis points in fiscal year 2012 and 2013. So that was also the year wherein we decided to invest in technology, into a lot of information systems. But the reason why I want to show this slide to you is because I also want to demonstrate that we are able to reduce our fees. And in fact, we have been at 10 basis points for the last 4 fiscal years. And there's a greater likelihood that we will keep this low fee rate, or even it could potentially be lowered to a single-digit number because of the increased contributions that we are receiving. This is just a snapshot of the different employer categories in the CERBT. So as of today, we have 532 agencies, 139 cities and towns. We have a huge number of special districts. And in fact, in your kit, we have provided you the list of all of the employers in the program. So I've mentioned at the start that I want to answer why we feel that the CERBT program is the OPEB trust provider of choice, because I believe that we provide all of these services for you, and that I'm very confident that the OPEB trust fund needs or requirements of the City of Livingston, the CERBT program will be able to provide. This is my last slide. So this is contact information of all of the customer-facing or employer-facing members of our team. So we have provided our email addresses, our direct lines, our mobile phone numbers, and you may reach out to us at any point, and we'll be very happy to work with you. So thank you very much. Do you have any questions for me?
We'll open up for any public comment, any public questions. Any questions, Council?
You mentioned something about likelihood of the fees. How likely is it to come down or up?
It will likely come down because of a lot of different factors. One is that the implementation of the new GASB standard, which is GASB 74 and 75, now it brought a lot of interest in terms of prefunding to the trust. So if we have more employers coming in, more contributions, then we cannot keep on charging 10 basis points of assets under management. So we are not allowed to over-collect. And this is still a lean team. There is no need for us to expand, even if the contributions get higher and higher, for the program. So which means more money for the employers in the trust.
Basis points and percentage, how do you convert that?
So it is kind of like 0.01%.
Okay.
So if it's $100,000, it's $100, something like that. Just for the simplicity of calculating it. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this trust fund, it's stock related, is that what we're just kind of trying to grasp, the concept. We invest so much money in, you take that investment and you decide what investments, and then from that, if there's money gained, then a percentage comes back. Is it more to simplify it just for me and, any public?
You're correct, sir. But not only is your money invested in stocks, it is very well diversified. So earlier I had a slide on the 5 public market asset classes. So, sorry, so we invest, for example, in all of these. So for example, for stocks, it is part of global equity, and there are just hundreds and thousands of different stocks that we invest in.
And how is the investment initially protected? Is there any type of protection for your investment?
Can you clarify?
It just,
further?
I'm kind of looking at it like, is there a possibility that, there could be used by a cyber attack, or, how is the funding protected from, internet hackers and all that?
Hang on, let me try to answer that question. I don't think I have the immediate answer in terms of how it is protected by the internet hackers, but it operates like any other fund out there. For example, if we buy Apple stocks, then a competitor buys Apple stocks, the pension fund buys Apple stocks, or a different person buys Apple stocks. It's all the same thing. So if you're saying, for example, if I don't know, like if Apple gets attacked or it crashes down, and then it would affect all of the stocks. It's not just the CERBT stocks.
Yeah, kind of like a while back ago, I think it was Target. They were, someone was able to get all those accounts. How,
No.
Would our investment be protected from those type of, attacks, or say, I'm not sure how CalPERS does background, but somebody said, you know what, I want to, take a little bit off the top here and that. How is that, how often do you look at it? How is it protected? How do red flags come up to protect the investments?
So we have an oversight committee. It is made up of the CalPERS board, the investment and risk management office, and even I believe the legal counsel of CalPERS, and they take security very, very, it is very important to them. So I believe that it is a main priority, and they make sure that, those things do not happen. CalPERS also takes care of the actual pension fund, which is several hundreds of millions of dollars. So it needed to be secure. It is secure.
And how does an employer have, once we invest, do you guys decide what to invest it in, or do you suggest you guys should put in these portfolios or in these investments, this is high yielding at the time, depending on the strategy that's picked?
So I'm not a qualified financial advisor, so usually the decision on which investment strategy to participate in would be something that the city, the internal team, would decide on.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving along, we have announcements and reports. I know Supervisor was not going to be here, so We have any city staff reports? Okay, I see recreation coming up.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Unfortunately, Jackie is out sick, so I will be reading this for her. So good evening, council members and mayor. I apologize for not being here tonight, but I did not want to wait until the next meeting before giving you an update on the district and the mural project. The city attorney has completed the code that changes the Rec Commission to Rec Commission and Art Council. I have also been working on the code that would take the approval process from the Planning Commission to the Rec Commission/Art Council. With your direction, we are hoping to bring both of these items for your approval to the next meeting. Okay. The second item she has is the Rec Commission has been working on a fundraiser to help with the Little Guys and Gals Backstop Improvement Project. They are selling $5 raffle tickets for a chance to win a 55-inch smart TV. We do have them at City Hall. If you guys would all like a packet, come see me. And the last one for your information, the 2018 community calendar will be in this month's water bill. We are encouraging all organizations to look at the calendar before planning their events. Do you have any questions or anything?
I do have something, Mayor. Just to add a little bit more to Jackie's staff report as it relates to the mural component of what Tony mentioned. So again, the idea here is that we have some local artists who are very interested in starting, have actually been working on some renderings for some murals in town. So we would love to basically approach different businesses in town and then, of course, city facilities of where we can actually come up with a concept, nice mural that can be designed in such a way that, people would be proud of and that it has historical significance and some other key aspects. So in order to move this program forward, we certainly would like the council's input, community input. Again, what we want to do is we want to approach like the bank across the street here. They have some nice open walls there that they can hopefully, donate some funds to incorporate a mural there and just keep going down the line and add some nice art to our art district. So thank you, Tony. I appreciate the follow-up.
Thank you, Ms. Tony. Do we have any other staff reports?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, members of the public. Anthony Chevria, Public Works Director, here this evening to provide a monthly summary report on Public Works activities. Here we have the Water Department. Staff has been working on day-to-day operations of well sites, water leaks, backflow testing, reports, meter reading, and installing meters. The wastewater department, staff has been performing day-to-day operations of the oxidation ditch, minor repairs on lift stations, cleaning out hardened grease from the headworks. We had a failure of our only working aeration VFD. The failure was anticipated. Staff had already prepared a Plan B and a Plan C. Plan B was initiated and there was minimal plan interruption. As you can see on the left, that's some of the grease that was taken out of the headworks. This time of year is kind of expected. It's colder weather, the grease hardens up in the lines. On the right is a working aeration unit. You can see the water moving, and aeration units are there to keep the bacteria in the oxidation ditch in an oxygenated state, an aerobic state, to keep our bacteria flourishing. Without it, without aeration for too long, our plant will go septic and we won't meet our parameters. But everything's working fine right now. Our building maintenance department, they've been working on a city hall project, some furniture moving, street projects, facility maintenance requests, some storm drain cleaning, and street sweeping. As you can see, when Jose's in the office, the city manager, nobody's safe. Whoever's around's working. No, he's working too. Union Pacific 3rd Street Crossing Project. That project was completed today. We got our hot mix on. What happened here was there was some track repair that needed to be performed by Union Pacific. So they brought in a machine to raise the track because there was a dip on the crossing and restabilize that portion of the track. As you can see up on the top right, there were some concrete blocks that were pulled out. Those got put back. The track is repaired. Public Works poured some hot mix to ease the transition into those concrete pads over the crossing. So first thing tomorrow morning, that crossing will be opened up and the street will be open before school. Last week I attended a management leadership training. It was an informative seminar. I just would like to thank the city for allowing me to participate in this leadership training. I also attended another meeting last week with Jennifer Haplin with Merced County RWA, Regional Waste Authority. We discussed AB 341, Assembly Bill 341, mandatory commercial recycling, and Assembly Bill 1826, which is mandatory organic recycling. What's the purpose for AB 341? To reduce greenhouse gas emissions by diverting commercial solid waste to recycling efforts, to expand the opportunity for additional recycling services and facilities in California. What role does the city have in both assembly bills? Local jurisdictions, on or after July 1st, 2012, each city or county entity shall implement an education, outreach, and monitoring program. Efforts may be phased in over time. Same thing with AB 1826, organic recycling. Each city and county is responsible for monitoring businesses and multifamily dwellings that meet the mandatory commercial recycling criteria. So I just wanted to advise council and the public that Public Works will be providing education and outreach to businesses and multifamily units that meet the criteria in AB 1826 and AB 341. Parks and L&B crew, they've been pretty busy with trimming trees, pruning, and maintenance. I don't know if you're aware, but we did lose the CBOC county program where we had, we were provided with, I think we lost 6 40-hour-a-week employees. But I did talk to the county and they believe that they'll be funded here pretty soon. So we'll receive those employees back. It's a great program for the city. That's it. Any questions? Thank you.
So while Mario gets going there, I'll just kind of chime in and just teensy bit on what he's going to talk about. As you know, staff has been working diligently on trying to address the traffic congestion issues off of Winton Parkway. And so, you know, we've reached out to many times to Caltrans, as well as, I know some of our council members have talked to some Caltrans and some elected officials. I know our county supervisor has also contacted and chatted. So because of all the different efforts of everybody, we finally got some movement on at least some temporary measures that can be done, and working towards permanent measures. And so Mario, our city engineer, will talk about that temporary but very useful development that is being proposed.
Thank you, Jose. Mayor, council members, members of the public, Mario Gouveia, city engineer. As Jose mentioned, we've been working with Caltrans now for quite a while on getting some resolution to that constriction there at Winton Parkway, approach to the southbound 99 on-ramp. And recently, we, in working with Caltrans, we did get a, whoops, here, let's see if that thing comes up. There you go. Well, I guess it's fine like that. But as you may recall, we talked about filling in this area here, which is really steep. There's some utilities here from MID and the utilities that would need to be addressed, and a fairly costly endeavor. We approached Caltrans to try and see if there was a possibility of a temporary solution that would still provide the access in a proper way to both the city and the highway, and try to not fill this in at this time. And Caltrans was very receptive to that, and this is a blow up of the area here. As we all know, this is the area where that blockage is. Everybody has to merge to one single lane presently, and then when they get here, they either pick going straight over the bridge or turning right and accessing southbound 99. So in working with Caltrans, what this preliminary layout shows is that we should be able to push traffic to the left here and actually get 2 lanes going into where that blockage is, and that way we can have traffic moving forward and turning right without having to share one lane. Of course, this is a temporary solution. Caltrans did work extensively on this, and this, of course, has to be accepted by them. The traffic coming off of 99 would have basically the same pattern that they have now. This median here is about, I think it's about a 10-foot median now. It would be narrowed to about 8 feet, and they should be fine with it. And talking to Caltrans, the next steps is to actually put this on a formal plan and submit it to Caltrans for an encroachment permit. But we wanted to come to council and give you an update, and I will be bringing at the next council meeting a more final design to be submitted to Caltrans. But we just wanted to share the latest developments on this.
Yeah, Mario, if you could share also with council as it relates to, so that they are aware of where our right-of-way is, what's our responsibilities,
Yes.
upkeeps, and what's Caltrans, so that way folks know.
Correct. And Caltrans right-of-way, which is the property line, so to speak, is basically along here, these trees and fences. There are some agreements which I actually just received today from Caltrans, and they date from, I think it's 1998. So they're pretty old. Here, I keep pushing buttons here.
You're a good engineer, don't worry.
Oh, he's going to the questions. Let me go back.
But not a good IT
It's not
guy.
liking it. There it went. I'm going to put this down here so I don't. The agreements basically specify whose responsibilities it is to take care of these facilities. And back then, I think there's a couple of agreements that I haven't gone through. I just received them today. That basically dictate who takes care of what. I think the city is responsible for the striping in this area and for the surfacing also, the AC and lighting. I believe that's what Caltrans was saying. They were reading the agreement as we were talking to them. So the Caltrans will look at this as a city project that they have to approve, especially from here up where their right-of-way begins. So we will get a permit from them for the work from here on towards the highway.
And we're hoping that that the amount of money that we had set aside, if you might recall, in this year's fiscal budget to address some of the needs in that area. I hope Mario doesn't need it all up, but we have some funds in there.
The striping shouldn't be
He didn't laugh.
a huge issue for that. When we were talking about this more with staff than with Caltrans, we were also discussing this intersection here of Winton and Gallo. That's in pretty bad shape. I know we were asked to look at that here about, I think, I don't know, less than a year ago. And it's alligatoring really bad. And I know we brought back something to say that the work is really easy to do, to redo this. The hard part is traffic routing, traffic control. So this is something that we can look at this time. If the city's wishing to do this work, then we will, we could do it at the same time.
So for a little more further clarification for council, so as the work gets done for these improvements, there's going to be some disruption. We don't know exactly how many days. We're hoping that the work can be done in the evening, when there's, not during peak time.
Yeah, we haven't gotten there. Caltrans will basically dictate what gets done within the right-of-way. It could be during the day, it could be in the evening. If it's in the evening, we might as well do the whole thing either during the day or however Caltrans wants their part done. That's probably what we should do with the rest of it.
And then number two, we're also looking at, the synchronization or the efficiency of the lighting, so that way, there's some type of synergy, so that, you don't back up traffic and stuff. I'm not talking about during construction. I'm just talking about, in general.
Right, later on, yeah.
What makes it.
I know this light right across from.
This one here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone else changed, and that one takes forever before it even comes back to, it'll circulate to all the other ones.
Yeah, I know there's some significant issue. You actually see some trucks here on Google lined up at that intersection, which, they're large vehicles, so it just backs that whole thing up.
Yeah, so we need to look at that, and Mario's going to jump on that.
We will look at that. It's going to be, I'll jump forward a little bit with a permanent solution. The permanent solution with Caltrans, and I know we have this with MCAG and the RTP. It's to make this five lanes, that sort of thing.
But the key here is, and I'm talking to the electeds here, the key is making sure that we keep this on the tier 1. Don't allow them to somehow let it skew down. To
lessen the priority.
It'll never
on
get
that,
done.
yes.
So we need to make sure to put the squeeze.
The permanent fix here will, of course, widen this, will address the issues that the mayor is just referring to, and then it will widen this bridge. And in talking to the folks at Caltrans, we're looking at $40 million plus to do that. So it's a major project, especially for Livingston. Obviously, it's something that has to be done at a regional level, obviously. So and through MCAG, through some funding of Caltrans, maybe through their SHOP program or some of the programs that
And they agreed,
they
and by
have.
the way, they agreed that, I mean, this is off the record, but,
Right.
you know, that should really never had happened, that,
Right.
you know, that was an oversight there, and, but, well, that's water under the bridge, so now we basically have to
Right.
address it.
And they are receptive to the temporary thing that just entails basically striping. So that will alleviate a lot of the issue at that bulb out looking thing. So we just wanted to give you a quick update on that, and next council meeting we'll have something with a little more detail, and we can discuss things such as estimated costs for these temporary, or you know, we can call it phase one. It will be a temporary repair for this to alleviate that constriction. I'll push the button now for the questions.
I have a quick question. What's the time frame? So once you submit it to Caltrans, how fast
Yeah.
could this temporary fix?
Caltrans is working with us well on this. I think I'm pushing the wrong button. They already prepared most of this stuff. Their staff still has to have this go through the protocols, which entails the encroachment permit, that sort of thing. They did mention that once we submit that, it would go to the folks that already know about this. It'll go maybe to a couple of other ones, and I was talking to Caltrans again this afternoon. There's someone else that needs to take a look at that may have a couple of suggestions. I don't know if they'll have concerns or not. It could take maybe a month or so through there. Normally it takes months and months, and so this 1 month would be like lightning fast for Caltrans. So that's hopefully what we are looking at. So once I actually put that on a set of plans, we're going to start running it through Caltrans informally, so that by the time we come to the council next month, at the next council meeting, we can already have gone a little further with folks at Caltrans. We will not submit the official encroachment permit until after we come to the council. But then after that, hopefully a month or so, we'll have a permit, and then you have to put out the bid. The bid's for about a month, and then after that, another month to get agreements and that sort of thing, and bonds for the contractor. So you're probably looking at May, something like that.
Of course, staff will be pressuring them to, you know, calling them, you know, a couple of times a week to make sure that this is moving forward, yeah.
Yeah. And they've been very good so far on this one. I have to say Caltrans has been very, very good.
Any questions from the public?
I have one. So did you say that?
Please come up and give your name and address, please.
Just a comment. My name is Cherokee Dickey, and you said that this was a defect from the original design. There's no recourse when someone makes a mistake. I mean, the first time I drove that, I knew that was a mistake. And I think everybody in the room, if you ever drove it and got over to that right side and then realized you can't get back over to get on the highway. So there's no recourse from the original person that did the design, because it's a defect.
Yeah, but actually, we've gone down that road several years in a row since I got here in 2011. And at this point, basically, what we're trying to do is just get money from them without not all of it, just trying to get some funding and then couple it with some of our funding and then some of the development funding in the area to just address it. So,
Okay.
but thank you for your comment.
Yeah, when you said, I was like,
Yeah, it just happened so many years ago that who is it and all the info, and can you find the docs and all that stuff, so. Thank you.
I think it's over 20 years old, I
Yeah.
believe. I think it's 1998, right at 20.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and council members and members of the public, I have a few things, and I will try to go through them fairly quickly here. First thing, I just want to thank our superintendent of Livingston Unified School District for looking at starting a Pequeños Empresarios program here in Livingston. Basically what it is, it's a really nice after-school program that engages young folks to be entrepreneurs and teaches them the Spanish language and all these other great components. So just want to thank him for accepting the recommendation and moving forward. Also, had mentioned to council that we are improving our internal controls, and I thank Brad and Dana, who's here, and Happy for, keeping up to date on making sure that we're up to speed with our, imposter fraud components and just always being one step ahead. So thank you very much. In addition to that, we went ahead and submitted, and I thank legal counsel and also Brad. We submitted the tax sharing agreement proposal to the county, and so we're just waiting for them to get back to us in terms of whether they accept or if they want to counter. And hopefully we can get that done because it's long overdue. Also, a request for proposals was sent out, and this is for energy and water resources audit and implementation of energy and water resources efficiency improvement projects. So the due date for that is the 28th of February. Again, what we're asking these folks that are going to submit is basically look at everything comprehensively, whether it's water efficiency, whether it's energy efficiency, whether it's lighting, whether it's solar, etc. They're going to look at all this, and they're going to come to us with where funding sources, where rebates are, what kind of capital we need, and then we get to pick and choose what we think is best, if all or parts, or reject if we're not in agreement. So anyways, anybody's interested, or of some folks that want to submit, I know that we'll at least get 3 or 4, so that's good. Also, very soon, we're going to be hosting some small business development workshops. That's going to be, I've reached out to Access Capital, which is part of a nonprofit organization, and they're going to be looking at, educating our small businesses here about loans, branding, credit solutions, credit reporting, appropriate permitting, business planning, business plans, all that kind of good stuff. So you'll hear when we're going to have this, and we hope we can get a good turnout because this is going to be very valuable. And I'm also trying to incorporate in there, get somebody to talk about the tax reform and how it impacts you and how you can navigate that. So that's up and coming. We also, I'm also working on a very important piece is the economic development piece here in town, and so we're really focused on the highway commercial property and some other vacant properties right here in town. And so we're looking at putting together some void analysis, looking at some feasibility plans, we're looking at some strategic plans. We're also looking at doing some market analytics and putting together brochures and things like that, where you get out of the fluff and you really get down to the nitty-gritty, so that we can, when we meet with some folks, we can give them exactly what the picture is. My hope is to be able to have access to information on a laptop that they can point to a certain, cross-section of town, and they'll be able to get all the information, whether it's traffic counts, whether or not we have water, sewer, and electricity and all that kind of good stuff. So that's what's going on there. One of the big things that we've been having some trouble with over the years even though it's in the ordinance, is that our folks continue to think that it's the city's responsibility to take care of the alleys. And so that means everything from, weeds to garbage and so forth. And so it's been a losing battle on our end. We constantly have to go out there because nobody takes responsibility for garbage X and, and so forth. Weeds, it's different because it's on their property, but, in terms of garbage. So, I don't know, council, that's something that, if you want us to just continue the way we're going, or if we need to be a little bit more aggressive, or, I don't know. So, but that is something that is an issue, and I know that on the code enforcement side, we've been doing some things, and I know you're going to talk about some code enforcement issues a little bit further down the road, but if we can get some feedback, I would like to get that so that we can try to address that somehow. And also, we've been working with the Merced Irrigation District. As you know, what we're trying to do is try, where we can, not use potable water to address, landscaping our parks. And so we've identified 3 parks that we have access to MID water, and they're very open to providing us. We just need to do, of course, the proper plumbing and all that kind of good stuff. So that's moving along, and then we'll come back to you once we have something very, very concrete. And then I'll jump over to the Foster Farms. As you know, one of the big things that's on my to-do list is to increase point of sales here in town so we can, of course, increase our sales tax. So I've been reaching out to different property owners here and businesses, and one of the bigger ones is, of course, Foster Farms. They're open. We're looking at figuring out how they can do their point of sale here as it relates to their petroleum-based products that they consume, and we're looking at other things, but that's the biggest ticket item. So my hope is that somehow we can come to, I might propose to council to do some type of tax sharing agreement for that specific component, because at this point, they're still paying for it, and they would benefit the city of Livingston. And even if we gave some of that money that they're giving away, that they're having to pay back to them, we benefit. So we're looking at that. It's a little complex, but you guys probably know what I mean. And then the other thing is, one thing that they did ask, and I told them that I can help, and that is, believe it or not, they're having problems filling positions across the board. It doesn't matter what position it is, they have workforce development problems. So one of the things that I did is I reached out to a workforce investment nonprofit that I helped start that can come in and help out with that and do training, and we'll come up with something, but that's in the beginning stages, so I just wanted to share that. And then, lastly, is the biggest ticket item, and the biggest ticket item, as you know, we've been working, TCP came into our lives a few years ago. We got the settlement. We were one of the first communities to address TCP, and we did it on well number 8 here in town. And we knew that there was going to be a maximum contaminant level adopted by the state. And we knew we had a few wells in town that had some TCP, and we didn't know whether or not all of the wells were going to be over or below that TCP limit. Well, we were informed today that all of our wells in town have TCP issues, or that are over the MCL limit. And so we have a big task in front of us. The good thing is we have experience already with our some wells, and so we're currently addressing well 14 and 16. Even well number 17, the newer well that we have in town, has TCP issues. So what do we have in the kitty? Well, right now we have $6 million of TCP funds that we, of course, have been investing, and we've been making a little bit of interest money on that. And the big scheme of things sounds like a lot of money, but for TCP, it's not a lot of money. So, so it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, but we have 3 years to comply with the new requirements. So what I'm asking you and what I'm going to be doing is, the best thing to do is to continue the educational component to this. So fairly quickly here, I've already started with the oversight committee, but I think now there's a little even more urgency to start sooner, to start communicating and educating our schools. Now the schools, on one hand, there is some special funding out there for the schools so that they can actually, I think they can apply up to $1 million to actually treat their water to address this on site, not anywhere else in the community, just in this for the schools, and they have to apply for that. But my game plan is I want to start early, start educating folks, just outlining what the big needs are and what the tasks are, so that we can try to meet that 3-year time frame. But there's going to have to be notices that are going to have to go out, because again, once we do our sampling, which will be towards the end of March, at that point, notices have to go out. And some of our wells are actually over quite a bit. And because of that, there might be even some special requirements for notices. And what I don't want is folks to be panicking or any of that kind of stuff. So I want to educate and educate and educate. So all your help is appreciated, and so we'll be starting soon. So that is it, Council, unless you have any questions for me.
Questions from the public? Go ahead, move on to the council member announcements reports. Ms. Magdalene?
Just real quick, I attended the Rec Commission meeting this past week. Like Tony mentioned, they are having a fundraiser to fix the backstop at Little Guys Field. They're raffling off a TV, so $5 a ticket. Any public support is greatly appreciated. Other than that, the Recreation Commission's doing really well, discussing the art district as well. So I have a question regarding that. I know there was some background work done on that in regards to the resolution. If it's ready, could we bring it to the next council meeting for discussion and possible passing of it? Yeah, okay. That's all I have.
Nothing to report.
And today I went to mosquito abatement. There's nothing to report from the abatement department. And I don't have anything else. So we'll move on to citizen comments. This section of the agenda allows members of the public to address the city council on any item not otherwise on the agenda. Members of the public, when recognized by the mayor, should come forward to the lectern and identify themselves. Comments are normally limited to 3 minutes. In accordance with state open meeting laws, no action will be taken by the city council this evening. For items which are on the agenda this evening, members of the public will be provided an opportunity to address the city council on each item is brought up for discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to address the council.
Right after her.
Happy New Year. It's the beginning, the first meeting of a new year. Not really in passing, but just we've lost 2 of our former city council members within the last year. We lost Frank Vieira not too long ago, like around early May of last year, and we just lost Roy Soria in December. So I'd like you to keep that in mind. Some of these items you've kind of touched on in one way or another in the city manager's report, but here are some of my questions. We've spent close to $17,000 on well number 8 replacement engineering. I'm wondering if that well is going to be located on the same site, or will we have to buy more land, maybe from Foster Farms. The industrial wastewater treatment plant was in the red as of the audit report, if I remember correctly, but it was not mentioned in this current budget document, and I'm just kind of wondering if that was zeroed out using funds from another part of the city and what the long-term plan for that is. According to the Water Board report, that a few things that I'd noticed, it stated there was not enough staff to do cross-connection control survey, and it stated that the staff in the water department are already, quote, overwhelmed, unquote. There was a missing tank inspection report that was due. I was wondering if that inspection report was done. The tank inspection, our water tank, if that was done and if it's available to the public. The report also stated that the plans to provide treatment for TCP in all wells in the future would likely require additional staffing in the water department. And I'm wondering, what we're thinking about doing in that. Well number 15 came up again. As you note that we've already had an enforcement letter from the state that was given in 2009, and they are wanting a plan submitted to the Water Board. Has that plan been submitted to the Water Board about how the magnesium levels in well 15 will be addressed? Also, separately, I understand that a surface water study was completed. And I'm wondering, is that report available to the public? If it's not quite ready, when will it be ready for the public, or will there be a presentation on it? And lastly, I noticed that in this staff agenda, in this agenda packet, there's an item having to do with a debt policy. And I'm wondering, and similarly, do we have an active document retention policy? And if not, could there be one?
Elaborate a little bit on the retention.
Document retention policy?
Oh, document retention.
Document retention policy, yes. And that will do it for the moment.
Sure. Okay, so different folks will, and the group here will definitely try to address as many of these questions that you have. So, as it relates to well number 17, well 17 is the new well, and that's over here off of Sun Valley Estates. So that so Foster Farms has no property around that area. So that property that's there, that footprint, we cannot grow any. I don't know why I wrote down 17. Oh, okay, all right. I remember hearing 17. So, anyways, but as
15.
Oh, yeah, I got 15. So well number 8. As a matter of fact, yes, we are looking at well number 8, and we are looking at more. I would say it's probably very, very probable that we're going to acquire additional property from Foster Farms, either through purchase or trade, because we do have some other property and that they might be interested in. So either or. As it relates to the industrial wastewater treatment plant, as you know right now, two things. One, it's currently be decommissioned by Foster Farms. As it relates to the actual debt itself, it's been in the books forever, and it just continues. And at this point, there is no, and Brad, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're not looking at zeroing out anything or paying it with any other funds until we look at the actual property itself and to see what is it that we can do in the future, whether we sell it, keep it, whether we have other alternative uses for it, et cetera. So at this point, it just continues to move in the same direction. As it relates to the water inspection tank report, I don't know if Mario or Anthony might want to address that because I'm not up to speed. All right, we'll get back to you on that one. As it relates to staffing, yeah, we're definitely very aware of that, and if you look at our staff reports here, we're actually looking at having additional staff on the water and sewer side, so we're doing some cross-training there, cross-certifications. And I know we're going to need some more, so we're continuing to look at that. And that's one of the other reasons why we're doing the classification compensation study, so we're digging a little deeper and looking at everything from a comprehensive perspective. As it relates to the debt policy, of course, Brad is going to be addressing that this evening, so we'll take care of that at that point. And as it relates to document retention policy, we do have a document retention policy. Don't know how deep you wanted to go into that, but we do have one. And well number 15, anything Mario or Anthony you want to share on well number 15? Yeah.
I believe that there's a report that's going to go into the state, but I don't believe that's.
Okay, so we'll get back to you on that one. I think that's all. Oh, yeah, the surface water study, sorry, thank you. So that document, we will be having a presentation in the very near future. We're just finalizing that, and it will be available for the public. And of course, that plays into the whole grand scheme of things of everything that we're talking about and what I talked about as it relates to TCP. So yeah, we're anxious to present all this information. Thank you.
Mike Torres, 1616 8th Street. Yeah, I had a request which I've talked to the city manager and Pro Temp Samra. And I suggested, I requested that the front doors of the city hall be turned into an automatic door opener for handicapped people, not only through the American Disability Act, but it also helped the city of Livingston with women with baby carriages coming in and pay their utility bill. It's very hard to get in those doors, and I think that they should be adapted over to automatic push-button doors. So I brought it over to your attention. And another thing too is whenever the city reports on wells, the conditions, they would put the location in there because there's a lot of people that don't know where they're located. The city employees do, but residents, they don't. So whenever you guys report on the city wells, can you put the locations where they're located at?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. That's very useful information. And as it relates to the handicap doors, staff has already been looking at that. And so that's something that we're looking at costing it out, looking at what kind of retrofits, and then budgeting it and getting it in there because, yeah, we do have quite a bit of traffic with folks who with strollers and handicapped accessibility. So thank you.
I guess I'm a rookie. Mike put his walker right in front of the aisle so I couldn't get up here. So I thought that was pretty clever of him. Thank you, Mayor and Councilor and Mike. I just have my name is Cherokee Dickey, and I just
Your
have
address, please?
8670 Santa Fe. I just have a couple of questions. What is the process of towing your citizens' vehicles when it's on their private property?
You had to ask that question when the chief is gone. Yeah. So, yeah. So The overall process, we do have standing ordinances in town that talk about, blightedness and whether there's broken windows and all kinds of other stuff. So there's some code enforcement elements to that. And so I am not 100% up to speed on all the different categories, but Chief should be back, his binder and stuff are here. So when he comes back, if we can, we'll have him comment on that.
Okay, and do you know what the purpose of doing that? I know if it's unsafe, I understand that, but if it's on the person's private property, they should be notified, right?
Yeah, there are standard procedures in terms of, they'll what they do is they go out and they actually will post a note of some sort
That makes
that
sense.
you could be able to see,
Mhm.
fluorescent many times, and
Okay.
it gives you a certain amount of time. And so if this is something that if they've notified you, let's say, a month ago, and the situation is you haven't done anything, then they don't necessarily need to go post another,
Sure.
and they can actually have it towed. So,
Okay.
but there is a procedure.
Okay, well, the situation was that there wasn't a procedure. They just came and took the vehicle, went out and talked to the police officer, said we would move the vehicle, and they said, well, it's too late, we've already towed the truck, you should have been notified. There was no notification on the vehicle and no notification otherwise.
Is this a red truck on a trailer, or?
No, it's just a
Just a
truck
car.
sitting in their driveway.
Catherine, you want to come up and say something? And
Once upon a time, a few years ago, the city passed a vehicle abatement ordinance, for which, for every vehicle abated, they get money from the state. Now, when this ordinance was passed, people like me came up and said, well, what if we have a car, it's in our driveway, it's clean, maybe we're working on it, are you going to take our vehicles? And at the time, we were told, no, we're not going to be coming after those vehicles that are on your property as long as you're keeping it up. We're only going after those vehicles that are obviously abandoned and in the street. Then as the years went by, and the housing market started heating up, it morphed to where cars were being ticketed as being non-operative that still had their tags and people were driving them, but they just happened to be dusty. And then it got to the point to where you would get there were these massive mailings of registered letters from the police department notifying whole sections of town that the vehicle in their driveway was in danger of being towed and abated as a nuisance. I remember being in the post office when these large stacks of mailings went out, more than once. So before a vehicle was towed or abated, first there was supposed to be some kind of sticker applied to the vehicle, and then a registered letter was sent to the property owner, a letter that you'd have to go to the post office and sign for in order to get. Now, there was a real big blow up because in the middle of all this, there were people whose cars that they were actually driving were getting cited and ticketed and towed. And supposedly, the word was supposed to have been sent out to everyone in the PD in that, well, unless it looks like a real junker, you're supposed to be leaving it alone. Well, we've had quite a bit of turnover since then, and it looks like maybe some of the policies and procedures may not be followed.
So because the chief is not here, I think we wouldn't do you any justice. We would, what I could do is, we got your name, we got your address, if you want to leave me your phone number.
Okay.
And we'll have a meeting and make sure that we address it. So if there was any indiscrepancies or anything, we can look at addressing.
I have a question. She said register letter, and I know the population here works a shift that does not, they're working the same time the post office is working. So if there is those registered letters, that's not going to get it for a lot of your citizens.
I did code enforcement for 7 years and for a different city. And the way I did it is you post a notice, whether it's on public or private property, giving a notice telling you how many days, what's wrong with it. Take pictures of it, send it registered to the registered owner of the vehicle and to the property owner. It goes to the address. It doesn't, if you're not home, then yeah, you have to go pick it up at the post office.
They didn't receive anything.
So that's the process. You have, and before that even happens, that goes on your car and you're like, you see the notice, it should be visible.
Right.
And it tells you you have so many days to move it.
Sure.
And we just, at that point, just because it's dirty or junky looking, it's not supposed to be, it's supposed to be tagged if it's a nuisance, if it's a hazard, if it has flat tires, broken windows, motors missing, it's up on jacks. Those are some of the stuff that needs to
Right.
be in abatement.
I
Now, if
understand
it's
that.
on the street, it's a different process, but on
Right.
private property, after it's logged into a code enforcement log, the code enforcement officer or police officer should go back and see if it's been moved. If nothing's been done, then at that process, you start a letter. And then if that doesn't done, then, then after the abatement process and letters and nothing's been moved, then you can tow it. So there's a process for it.
Okay, and I agree with your process. I
So-
think that's great, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And what did happen, though, the car was taken and got a letter saying that now we owe $600. They put a lien on it, and by the time we get this resolved, it will be long gone.
Yeah, the best thing you could do is make an appointment with the chief of police or Lieutenant Chris Soria and
Well,
try.
I did call the city hall, and they referred me to the police department, talked to the dispatcher or the lady on the phone, and then talked to an officer. And the officer told me that he didn't, there's so many variables. And I told him what the variable was, why they would take it. Because they did give us a ticket when they took it. That's the only time we got any clue to what was happening. And he said that, and I told him that, and then he goes, well, if you want to educate yourself, you can get on the computer and you can look up the code yourself on the computer. And I told him at that time, I know you're a busy man, and so I will let you go. And so that's why I'm here, because I felt like I tried different avenues. And like I said, the car is going to be sold. The bill was sent January 11th, and they gave us 10 days to come up with the money to pay for it, to get it out of the lien situation.
So we can make an appointment for you tomorrow, and we'll address it right away. So.
Okay, well, can we do it on the phone, because I do work. Okay.
Yeah. Can I have you don't have to say it over the...
And Mayor, I know the item's not on the agenda, but it is Chapter 6 of Title 11 of the Municipal Code that's titled Abandoned Right of Vehicles. It talks about some of that process that you were just talking about with noticing. Also, obviously, the Vehicle Code provides authority for the police departments to tow vehicles in case it's an inoperable vehicle.
What was that? Is there notices put on the vehicle?
Yes, they're as far as the code goes, is
Consent agenda items on the consent calendar are considered routine and non-controversial and will be enacted by one vote unless separate action is requested by the city manager or city council member. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the city council or city manager request that specific items be removed. Item 2, resolution approving a professional audit service agreement with Brian L. Jolly, CPA. Item 3, approval of minutes of meeting held October 3rd, 2017. Item 4, approval of the warrant register dated December 22nd, 2017. Approval of warrant register dated January 11th, 2018.
Make motion to approve the consent agenda.
Oh, second.
First and second, roll call, please.
Okay, roll call. Councilmember Aguilar?
Yes.
Councilmember Siqueiros?
Yes.
Mayor Soria?
Yes.
Motion approved, 3-0.
Next, we'll move on to discussion and potential action items. Item 6, resolution approving an agreement with the California Employees Retirement System for other post-employment benefits trust administration.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, as is noted in the staff report, other post-employment benefits, or OPEB, other than pension, do comprise a part of the compensation that employees offer for services rendered. And other post-employment benefits here in the city of Livingston can consist of healthcare benefits such as medical and dental. And just as funds are set aside for retirement payment of pensions to employees upon retirement, so should funds be set aside for payment of health care benefits upon employees' retirement. And as we noted earlier in the presentation, depending on the hire date and bargaining unit membership, retirees from the city of Livingston and their dependents will or will not receive post-employment health benefits. So I think we know, as the current practice is for the city of Livingston to pay benefits on a pay-as-you-go, or for retirees as they become due, but no funds are set aside to cover benefits as they are currently earned or for benefits earned by employees in prior years. So certainly setting funds aside for other post-employment benefits, OPEB, and pre-funding demonstrates prudent financial management, a greater likelihood of earning a higher interest rate, may contribute to preserving a positive credit rating, and more of the benefit costs covered by investment earnings. City staff this evening is recommending that the council approve an agreement with the California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS, to take advantage of their product that is the California Employees Retiree Benefits, or CERBT, to start banking some of the money that will be needed in the future to help pay for these benefits. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
I'm going to open up for any public comment. Okay, close at 9:08. Bring it back to council. We have any questions, council? I'll go ahead and my comment is that if it's going to assist and help employees and open up different opportunities, the cities and towns provided by CalPERS, and I know some of the local cities have the same thing, and I think if it's an opportunity to invest and save some money for our employees, I think it's a good thing, and CalPERS is a well-respected organization. So I'm going to make a motion approving an agreement with California's Employee Retirement System for other post-employment benefits trust administration.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call. Councilmember Aguilar?
Yes.
Councilmember Siqueiros?
Yes.
Mayor Soria?
Yes.
Motion approved, 3-0.
Thank you.
To a resolution approving the City of Livingston debt management policy. Item 7.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Government Code Section 8855I requires any issuer of public debt to provide to the California Debt and Investment Advisor Commission, or CDAC as it is abbreviated, certification on the report of proposed debt issuance that they have adopted local debt policies. Now, the City of Livingston is not currently considering entering into any debt, but since this is something that needs to be in place, we thought it was a good idea to adopt it, have it ready to go, so the next time there is a debt issuance, that item is taken care of and the box is checked. This particular policy, we were assisted by Albert Pache of Pache and Associates, who was the financial advisor on the last refunding deal. And so if there are any questions from the council or from the public, he's more than willing to answer those. And Mr. Pache, I don't know if you want to make some comments, just separate?
I can do that just very quickly. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, members of the Livingston community. Thank you very much, Brad, for that introduction. As you may recall, I assisted the city in the fall of 2016 with the refunding of sewer obligations. At that point, that was a very successful sale, and there was a significant amount of money saved by refinancing the bonds, just as someone would refinance a home loan and so forth. So the law was probably passed in 2016, and it became effective in 2017, where any tax-exempt entity, whether it be school district, city, community services district, county water district, would have to have a debt management policy in place before they issue any debt. As Mr. Grant said, it's a good idea to have that in place before you do that. I assisted the school district in May and June of last year with their debt management policy, and have also assisted other cities in the area, including the city of Atwater and community colleges and so forth. So this is a pretty standard set of policies or items that the city can enter into. None of those are, as Mr. Grant said, are being contemplated at this time, but this is something that's required for any city, school district, community college, water district, and so forth to have in place. So with that, I'm certainly glad to answer any questions that you may have on any of the bonds or the structures or whatever you would like to ask.
Thank you. I'm open up for a public comment at 9:13. No public comment. Bring it back to council. Do you have any questions, council? The only question I had was the government code, and that would bring us up in compliance for this year.
It's going to be in place permanently. So I believe the answer to that would be yes. It puts you in compliance with the government code. It's not something that has to be reviewed or voted on again. The policies just have to be followed when a debt issue is brought before the council. So these policies are going to have to, the department heads will have to provide staff reports and so forth, similar to what we did on the sewer bond refinancing, in terms of what type of debt they would like to see issued, how it's going to be repaid, and so forth.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Roll call. Councilmember Aguilar?
Yes.
Councilmember Siqueiros?
Yes.
Mayor Soria?
Yes.
Motion approved, 3-0.
Thank you all.
And we already did 9. We'll move on to 10. And that's, where are we at? We're at 8. Resolution adopting the City of Livingston Master Employment Salary Schedule effective January 1st, 2018. I'm sorry, I marked it off on my book.
It's okay. Hanging out. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you is requesting your approval for adopting a resolution approving the Livingston Master Salary Schedule effective January 1st of 2018. A little background on the item at hand is that the salary schedule will now reflect the implemented minimum wage increase that just took effect on January 1st, 2018. Also, as a housekeeping item, we needed to include the city manager classification, as long as some part-time positions such as lifeguards, recreation leaders, and the maintenance worker 1 position as a part-time position. These positions were in the current salary schedule, but then they were admitted at some time, I'm not sure why. So what we're just trying to do is make everything correct at this current time. So all these positions that are noted in the current salary schedule, which is attached in the bold italic lettering, so you'll see which is being corrected. And staff is just recommending that City Council adopt the resolution establishing a City of Livingston Master Employee Salary Schedule, confirming rates and ranges for all City of Livingston established positions. Any questions?
Any questions from public? Bring it back to council for any questions, council?
No, just like to make a motion if nobody else.
I second that.
I have a first from Councilmember Sicaros, second from Councilmember Aguilar.
Okay, and for the record, the motion is to approve? Right?
Motion is to approve the resolution adopting City of Livingston Master Employee Salary Schedule effective January 1st, 2018.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay. Roll call, Councilmember Aguilar?
Yes.
Councilmember Siqueiros?
Yes.
Mayor Soria?
Yes.
Motion approved 3-0.
Thank you.
I think Happy, or some, is it you, Frankie, who had some pictures for me?
they actually should be loaded on there.
Okay.
So Tony, can you?
And moving on, item 10, is just discussion of code enforcement and graffiti. And this was just brought up for me. It's no intention to pick on anybody or, any department. There is some good things on here, but I know we're busy. It's going to be a tough winter, and we got a lot of things going on, but I'd like to take a more proactive approach. This right here, it's one of the local businesses. It was up for about a week. I think that's way too long. It just invites, more people to come, or, the taggers. And I think it should fall on the responsibility of the property owner first. At least, I'm sure officers and public works drove by it. At least someone, going, hey, you got graffiti, it needs to come down, if that doesn't fall in the code enforcement realms location. So if we can have, at least, so that way it's not, I'd like to see it down within, 2 days. So basically that just advertise the hooligans, artwork. And if we don't address it right away, then like, hey, it was up for a week, I'm gonna go do it again, or invite someone else to go do it. So if we can try and take things down like that, at least notify the property owner just by, hey, you have graffiti out there. I'm sure if someone from Public Works or a uniformed officer, hey, it's your responsibility. And then I'm sure they would address it. If it's still up, then we can go the notices route. But I think we should partner up with our businesses and community. So that's just something. I thought a week up there was too long. And that's one of the, it's a tire shop over off Francie and Crowell. That's in the alleyway too. So I think, when we leave stuff up like that, I don't know how long that's been there, but once I saw that thing at the Sinclair, I got on my soapbox and just kind of drove around. And, you know, I'm not sure what that was. Looks like it was a truck or camper that was burnt. Yeah, so that probably needs to be abated. That's just a safety hazard and an eyesore. And that's just kind of one of the empty lots, so. There's mattresses. I know it's hard catching people dumping stuff, but the property owners, you know, I don't know if they're in town or live out of town, but at least we should stay on top of them and have them be responsible for. I know if I live next to that, I would address it. And that's a house over off of, I think it's Paul's Market. We should definitely hold the property owners responsible. And again, it's not to pick on anybody. It's just, you know, we need to be proud of our city, and you know, little things like this end up adding up. So I just want to take a more proactive, you know, approach. You know, that just entices, you know, kids to go in there and cause damage, or squatters. You know, I would go to squatters, and you know, in the winter times, they start fires to keep warm, and the next thing we know, that house is up in flames. So. And that, yeah, it's behind Paul's Market, so we should probably send a letter to that property owner.
Yeah.
I know a lot of times they may not live in town. That residence has been there as far as I can remember. On a good note, there's some of the empty lots. I noticed that there's housing being built. You know, I'd rather see a house rather than an empty lot that becomes a abatement. So that's a good thing that. You know, empty lots. And I know there's another one, I think it's off of 7th Street. The apartments look great. So they're doing some good job aesthetically making the apartments look good. The ones right across from that Allocation apartments, those are looking better. This corner house always seems to have some kind of cars or, you know, something out. As you can see, it's a big blind spot as you're coming around from the corner. So that, especially, I know kids are attracted to that, maybe playing on that, so that's kind of a safety hazard. So these are, and I know that, you know, our officers are out driving around, but, you know, if they're not handling a call, I'd like to see a more proactive approach. Hey, put a tag on it. But let's do it right rather than just tow it. Let's tag it, abate it, give the property owners, unless it's a safety hazard, which, you know, that could be depending on being a blind spot. But just, I know we're busy, but just a little bit more proactiveness on our part. I think, you know, the citizens demanded that, you know, we keep our city looking good and also partner up with our community. You know, and education too is one of the other things. So that's basically it. So if we could just get, you know, a little bit more proactiveness. I know I've mentioned, you know, having a code enforcement officer full-time. That's something I'd like to see down the road, where we have someone for the whole city. I know we've talked about cross-training, animal control and code enforcement. So that's something we could do. But again, it's not to pick on anybody. It's just, you know, we want to make our city look good. And
Well, I agree with you 1,000%, Mayor. I thank you for catching these things, and I encourage others to, you see something, let us know. We'll be huddling up with the department heads to talk about this, because, you know, we, you know, sometimes, you know, you go back, you know, there's, you know, we don't want to have a tunnel vision. So, you know, and that public safety, code enforcement, cleanliness, graffiti is not just public works and not just the police department. It's all of us staff. So I have to talk to all the department heads so that we can communicate this out, because when they're driving around, yes, police and public works are driving more, but everybody can see something, so it's good for them that we educate them and have them be proactive, and see if we can institute also some type of, program where folks can, take a photo and text it in, or, something. And that way, the community is also involved, and we can try to tackle these things quickly. So thank you for bringing them up.
Yeah, maybe we could put it in our water bill, and just how you mentioned too, the alleyways, I think, if we're fighting a losing battle, then we probably need to be a little bit more assertive. At least send out a notice, hey, this weeds, if it's on your property, it belongs to you. We'll give you a courtesy notice, but after that, then we'll start, addressing it by abatements and if needed, administration citations to, clean that up. So, but we need to make sure we take care of our alleyways. There's no holes or, so if we could partner with our community, and, I'm sure people would be willing to pitch in and make sure their alleyway looks good.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Open up to the public for 926.
What happened with our graffiti truck? I mean, once upon a time, we had this graffiti truck that was equipped with different colored paints and hoses, and the whole idea behind that, it had a variety of paints that matched the majority of the colors in the downtown area, and someone would from the Public Works was driving up and down and see the graffiti, hit it that same day. See another graffiti, hit it that same day. See somebody else graffiti somewhere else, hit it that same day. With the idea being to where it wasn't staying up 2 or 3 days. It wasn't staying up a week. It was being taken care of almost immediately. And I remember when a big deal was made about, woohoo, we have this graffiti truck and we're going to get rid of the graffiti as soon as it goes up, we're going to be taking it down. And then it just seemed to go away.
Yeah, we just need to prioritize, because there's been, resources have been pulled in different directions, and so, this has become a problem, and it's being brought up by our council and their community, so we just need to sit down and figure out a better way to address these things. We've been talking to Caltrans about the graffiti off of, along the freeway, and we do have some cameras that we can move around. We also need to catch some of these people and make them poster childs for, you can't be doing this, because otherwise this is a never-ending cycle. But as it relates to the graffiti truck, my understanding is everything, we have the truck, we have the different paints, and we just need to be more proactive. We need to move some resources. We need to dedicate a day or two, a week, and find out, where's graffiti around town, and hit it in the morning, because we can't just drop what something is. So it has to be programmed either at the very beginning or towards the end of the day, so that way it doesn't disrupt the other stuff that's going on. But it's important, so we will address it.
Yeah, if we can, and depending where it's at, if we can have maybe have an officer take a picture of it, pull a case number, and then start keeping track. So if we're seeing the same pattern and we catch someone in the act, and now we have, hey, you graffitied, this is your mark, and now we can go after them, criminal-wise.
Actually, even with the schools, because they might have it on their notebooks. They might have it on different items they have. So we can touch bases with the schools. So yeah, we need to catch some of these folks.
Yeah, the reserve officers would be great for for that, Chief. With that, I don't have anything else. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight, and thank you to staff for doing such a great work. And let's make 2018 a great year. Have a good night. God bless.